Tonight, we are really seeing the beginning of a civil war. Now, of course, we saw violence in the streets immediately after the election, but this is something far more serious. This is the deep state declaring that it is seceding from our government and starting a civil war. We used to have the CIA hide its assassination programs in other countries. Now they do it openly. We used to have the CIA hide the fact and deny the fact that they were overthrowing foreign governments. Now they don't hide that fact. And as a matter of fact, they're coming after our own government, trying to overthrow our own duly elected government, involving themselves in the election. As we saw John Brennan, unprecedented that a CIA director would involve himself politically. We have military prohibitions against that. If you had a Pentagon official that came out and got political, that took sides in politics, he'd be removed from office. And yet the CIA acts as a quasi-military organization. They have officers and so forth. Why is it okay for the CIA, who operates covertly, quietly, behind the scenes, why is it okay for them to openly endorse or openly attack a presidential candidate, and it's not okay for the military to do that? You know, they used to hide the fact that they were spying on Americans without warrants, that they were coming after us. The NSA was not supposed to be looking at American citizens. And now we know that they're doing it, and they continue to do it. The FBI was not supposed to spy on people without a warrant, yet they do it. And they were doing this back in the 1970s when we had the Church and the Pike Committee hearings. So they created the FISA Act to try to stop that. And yet these government organizations that are now attacking Trump, that are now doing this, they use the FISA Act to move forward on their violations of the Bill of Rights. You know, it was James Madison, who was the father of the Bill of Rights, who wrote it, got it put in there. He said the means of defense against foreign danger historically have become instruments of tyranny at home. Now we see the same tactics at the CIA, the deep state, the dark surveillance state that we've created, the military-industrial complex, but far more than that, the darkest part of that Eisenhower warned us about is now coming after our government. And we've had presidents and congressmen who have looked the other way because they didn't care when they came after our liberties, destroyed the Bill of Rights, and attacked American citizens. But always, as we pointed out many times before, it's always the people in power who are going to be the ones who are lined up against the wall by these military coups first, because they've got to take the people in power out, and then they come after the citizens. So now we have this article from Mikhail Phelan that came up today. Now we go nuclear. A war between President Trump and the intelligence community intensifies. This is a man, John Schindler, who spent nearly a decade inside the NSA as an intelligence analyst, counterintelligence officer. He stated today that a senior intelligence source said Trump will, quote, die in jail, following a series of tweets concerning recent leaks. He said, and he put this out publicly, now we go nuclear. Intelligence community war going to a new level, he said. Just got an email from a senior intelligence community friend. It began, he will die in jail. Now, they say perhaps this was in response to the tweets we had from Donald Trump, where he said the real scandal here is classified information illegally given out by intelligence like candy, very un-American. Again, attacking the leaks in the intelligence community. And of course, it was Donald Trump himself who said he ran his own little test of the intelligence community. He didn't tell any of his staff. He only told a few of the insiders in the intelligence community about a meeting that they were going to have. And he said immediately that information got leaked out. And he said nobody knew about it except these guys. So I know that it's some of these guys in the intelligence community who are linking this out. So we know that that's going on. He said information is being, and this is Donald Trump's tweet today, information is being illegally given to failing New York Times and Washington Post by the intelligence community. Was it the NSA and the FBI, he says? This is just like Russia. Well, actually, it is just like Stalin's Russia. It's also like the East German Stasi. Now, also in the article, it points out that Paul Manafort has now been named, just like Roger Stone, saying that they're going to come after these guys. The FBI is going to investigate him. He says, I have no idea what this is referring to. I've never knowingly spoken to Russian intelligence officers. I've never been involved with anything to do with Russian government or the Putin administration or any other issues that are under investigation. And so many people are asking, as the Daily Mail does in this headline, is there a conspiracy inside Washington to destroy Trump and his inside circle? Of course there is. And they're coming for the people that are a threat to them. They're not coming for Paul Ryan. They're not coming for Reince Priebus. They're not even coming for Vice President Pence. They're coming after the people they see as agents of change, the people who are fighting against the globalists, the people who have been there all along. And as Representative Devin Nunes, as he said, first it's Flynn, Next, it'll be Kellyanne Conway. Then it'll be Steve Bannon. Then it'll be Reince Priebus. Keep going on with that. He said Flynn is just the appetizer. The president is the entree. That is where they're going. You see, when you don't shut these people down, and we're going to talk about the various pundits and how they have looked at this, and is this a good thing or not a good thing? We've had people on the left who've said, look, I really don't like Michael Flynn, but I don't want to see him go this way. This is very dangerous for us as a country. But then we've had other people like Glenn Greenwald who said, hey, the end justifies a means. I'm going to talk to you about how this is fundamentally different than a whistleblower exposing the crimes of government. Of course it's different. Government has so much power, so much monopoly of force, we have to hold them to a higher standard. But I want to show you this pattern as they're going down the line, one after the other. I want to talk about this. This really kind of comes in 4 stages. This is the cancer, the political cancer that we're seeing now as we've seen the Stasi state become politicized to try to overturn in a coup our own government. Take a look at the first stage. Person that we've got in this first stage right now is Stephen Miller. Look at the headlines coming after Stephen Miller this last week. This is the first stage. This is ridicule and character assassination. That's where he is primarily. So we've got the New York Times saying Stephen Miller, Trump's defender-in-chief, is late night's new nemesis. Now this is, so all the late night talk shows are making fun of him. He's the brunt of their jokes. They talk about how Stephen Colbert mocks him as a Game of Thrones style official. That's reported by Time magazine. Breitbart says this is a climate of violence. We've got Stephen Colbert depicting Stephen Miller's head on a spike. And of course, this is helping Stephen Colbert's failing ratings. He's now coalescing the liberal extremist around him to go after Trump. That's his little niche that he's created. Then we got Seth Meyers slamming Trump advisor Stephen Miller's deranged voter fraud claims, and on it goes. If you look at the Washington Post headlines, this kind of lays it out. Look at their the top of their website page. It's kind of like the front page of their newspaper. And you see here, for 14 days, Trump kept his number 2 in the dark. What does this mean for Pence? And you got a picture there of Mike Pence, very perplexed. I don't really belong with these guys. See, they're not going to attack Pence. This is the guy we had to throw Michael Flynn under the bus because he was somehow embarrassed. He couldn't defend that. But then when we talk about Stephen Miller, you can see in the upper right-hand corner here, what can we learn about Stephen Miller from his high school video? This is the absurd link they go to for character assassination. But also pointing out that this is bigger than Flynn. This is increasing Trump's credibility gap. That's what the Washington Post is doing. And then talking about how Morning Joe has blacklisted Kellyanne Conway. Oh, horrors. But now they're moving to the next stage for Stephen Miller. Now we've got Chicago Tribune saying Trump advisor Stephen Miller lied and it matters. So we're going to start moving to the crime stage soon on him, but they're already starting to get there with Kellyanne Conway. She's already in stage 2. They've made fun of her for quite a while. Now they're moving into stage 2, the absurd criminal and ethical allegations, then calling then for her dismissal. So we see U.S. News and World Report talking about Kellyanne Conway's fall from grace. They say she once had a sterling reputation, but it's now being soiled. By who? By the people who are twisting her comments, taking them out of context, and coming after, just like they said, oh, she's got alternative facts and these things are hurting her. I understand. Remember where that came from? Remember when they said, well, you know, we got the Park Service that is saying that the crowd at the inauguration was this, and they get in this petty argument about the size of the crowd. She goes, oh, we got some other alternative facts out here. In other words, we got other people who are saying different things, is what she said. But because she said alternative facts, everybody said, oh, alternative facts. There are no such thing as alternative facts. There's real facts, and there's things that aren't facts. So you're fake news, Kellyanne Conway. And now, most recently, we've had, and here's the absurd allegations that come out, an ethics watchdog is now denouncing her endorsement of Ivanka Trump products and saying that that appears to be, quote, a clear violation of the prohibition against misuse of position. She should be disciplined, said the federal government's chief ethics watchdog this week in a letter to the White House. Let's take a look at this, because if you look at it in print, my wife said to me, you really got to play this clip for them, because if you look at it in clip and text and you don't listen to the clip, it sounds pretty bad. But if you see what she's actually saying, you understand what's going on. Let's play this clip of Kellyanne Conway.
But there is that hashtag grab your wallet. Is that behind some of this stuff?
That's been a huge failure. Goodness, they had a whole election. They had the first female president, everybody thought, talking about that day and night. She had no message, no positive message. That was her message. That failed. And then they had a march saying the same thing the day after he was sworn in as president. They're welcome to march, but what's coming of it in terms of, you know, commercial interest? This is just, it's a wonderful line. I own some of it. I'm going to give a free commercial here. Go buy it today, everybody. You can find it online.
Do you understand the context? She was offering this as so-called endorsement as an anti-boycott. She's talking in context about the people who are rioting in the streets, who are now trying to boycott products by Ivanka. She says, well, let's do an anti-boycott. I'll do a commercial for her. And she throws that out as kind of as an afterthought, as a joke, as they're going to a commercial break. But I want you to take a look at Michelle Obama. They had no problem with Michelle Obama doing a full-on commercial endorsement for Subway. Take a look at this.
The First Lady of the United States.
Thank you, Michael. We're thrilled. We're thrilled that he could join us along with Justin Tuck and Nastia Lukin, who are here as well. They're going to help fix our sandwiches. So you're going to be able to meet a couple of other great athletes who believe in eating healthy as well. For years, Subway has been providing meals that are healthy, but also easy, tasty, and affordable. Right, parents?
So as you can see, she's lining up athletes, and then she does a full-on product endorsement like a real commercial. And this thing went on and on and on, and it was staged. But of course, that's not an ethical problem. No problem for that, because it's political. There's absolutely nothing to these absurd allegations. But then, of course, you get to stage 3, which is where Michael Flynn is right now, having been thrown under the bus for absurd allegations. And then we're going to eventually come to stage 4, where you die in jail, just like stage 4 cancer. This is where this is all metastasizing. And today we saw Donald Trump come out as he's having a press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu. He said, this is a criminal attack on a wonderful man. He said it was fake media that was used to harm him. He said he didn't like the way that General Flynn was treated. He said it was very unfair. And I would agree. But I'm concerned about the way he was treated, not just by the media, the way he was framed, the way this lie was set up about the Logan Act, but about the fact that he was thrown under the bus by Donald Trump. Doesn't he understand that he is the eventual target, that this is where this is all going? It's absolutely amazing. He went on to say, from intelligence, papers are being leaked, things are being leaked. It's criminal action. It's a criminal act. Yes, of course it is. And we have to understand that when we look at this, it is fundamentally different than the things that were being done, the leaks that came out by WikiLeaks, by Snowden, by Manning. These were leaks that came out. They showed us criminal actions by our government, which has so much power, is given a monopoly of power in many areas. That's why it's so dangerous. That's why they have to be held to a higher standard. But not only that, we see when they put out the leaks, we see this in context. But when the government leaks stuff out to criminalize somebody, to destroy them, to throw them in jail, we aren't allowed to see the full document. All we are allowed to see is their summary of this full document. And that is what makes this even more dangerous. Again, we take a look at the article by Eli Lake, The Political Assassination of Michael Flynn. That's what I called it yesterday as well. He said, Kellyanne Conway said on the Today Show, well, misleading the vice president really was the key here. I don't think he misled them. I think they're spinning this and pulling this back. He says it's not even clear that he lied. He says in his resignation, he didn't deliberately leave out elements of the conversation. And then we go on through here. He said, one White House official with knowledge of the conversations told me that the Russian ambassador raised the sanctions to Flynn and that Flynn responded the Trump team would be taking office in a few weeks and would review Russian policy and sanctions. That's neither illegal nor improper. You see? And he points out, he was just thrown under the bus. We said that yesterday. We said, of course, they're going to be talking about that when they have a conversation on the day that Obama is trying to interfere with the Trump administration that's going to be taking place in 3 weeks. Of course, they're going to say that. He says, well, we'll get to that in 3 weeks. We'll talk about that. But what I want to really talk to you about was this other thing. I'm sure that's why General Flynn didn't put that in there. And he goes on to point out, but there's another story in here that as well. He said it's very rare that reporters are ever told about government-monitored communications of U.S. citizens, let alone senior U.S. officials. He said in the past it was considered scandalous for senior U.S. officials to even request the identities of U.S. officials incidentally monitored by the government. He points out that John Bolton was removed from consideration as U.S. ambassador to the UN because they found out in 2006 that he had made 10 such requests. I said, that's beyond the pale, and yet it's not today. And so we have people pointing this out. Damian Linker makes very good points in his article, America's Spies Anonymously Took Down Michael Flynn. We understand what's going on here. This is a Stasi state getting political, doing a coup against our American elections. You want to get worried about something? It isn't the Russians hacking our elections. It's the CIA who is trying to shut it down. And yet we haven't. He should know better than this. Glenn Greenwald coming out saying, leakers who exposed General Flynn's lie committed very serious crimes, but it was wholly justified because I don't like the guy. When we look at his headline article here, America's Spies Anonymously Took Down Michael Flynn. This is deeply worrying. He said the whole episode is evidence of the precipitous and ongoing collapse of American democratic institutions, not a sign of resiliency. Flynn's ouster was a soft coup, a political assassination. He's the third person. I did it yesterday. We had this other article from Eli Lake. It was a political assassination. But here's the thing that's troubling about it. Engineered by anonymous intelligence community bureaucrats. The results, he said, might be salutary. In other words, he doesn't like Flynn. But this isn't the way a liberal democracy is supposed to function. We have to understand what makes us so dangerous and what makes it fundamentally different that Glenn Greenwald, I think, misses is different from what WikiLeaks and Manning and Snowden did. Because what the deep state is doing, what this intelligence community is doing, is they are specifically targeting individuals who oppose them. This is political. And it's being done by the people who have so much power, as opposed to Manning, Snowden, WikiLeaks exposing crimes by the government against the people. We have to have that check, especially against this secret state. And of course, the mechanism is fundamentally different. When we see these leaked documents from WikiLeaks, from Manning and others, we get it in the full context. We do not even see the documents when we get it leaked, so-called, to the Washington Post, because it's just innuendo. They say there's no documentation. We can't show you this because it's still secret. So this is a thing that's very concerning. This is why it is different. And what we see happening here is Obama's Stasi state being left in place, these bureaucrats that he created. And of course, under Obama, we saw the persecution of NSA whistleblowers like Benny and Drake that were left alone by George W. Bush. Also going after CIA whistleblowers like Kiriakou and Jeffrey Sterling. This is the escalation of political personal attacks against people by this secret deep state. It's very, very troubling. And now we go to the next stage. Big Brother, of course, has been watching you. We've been talking about how they're going to try to criminalize cash. And now we have somebody, Jim Rogers, who is an economist, a libertarian, talking about this. He said governments are always looking out for themselves first. And he points out that in India recently, they withdrew 86% of the currency that was in circulation overnight. Remember Ron Paul used to warn us about this? He said now they've made it illegal to spend more than that. He said more than $4,000 in any cash transaction. In France, you can't spend, he said, I think more than 1,000 euros. He said some states in the U.S., you can't make cash transactions above a certain state. Of course, we see that it's criminalized if you take too much cash out, or put too much cash in, so forth and so on. We know where this is headed. And of course, there was a book that Jim Rogers wrote a few years ago. It's called Investment Biker, one of my favorite books. He did it about 20 years ago. And what he did was he went around the world on a motorcycle with his girlfriend. And he went through these various countries talking about their culture, talking about politics, talking about economics, because that was really what he was focused on, politics and economics. He made an interesting observation that stuck with me all this time. He said, when you go into a country, you can tell the difference, you can tell how corrupt the country is based on the difference, on the spread between the black market value of the currency and the official exchange rate. But see, that is where these people are going, that and the surveillance state. And of course, civil asset forfeiture is a key part of this. The war on terrorism, the war on drugs, they use all of these things to scare you to take your cash. And then what they're going to do on the other side of it is the very money that you have will be coming from your universal basic income. They will put us all on allowance. They will watch everything that we buy. They'll track us everywhere we go with the roads that they set up. And then we have this latest article from Zero Hedge. Actually, it's a report going back to last October that didn't get a lot of attention because we're in the middle of the election. Megacities, the urban future, the emerging complexity. It's a Pentagon training video created by the Army for U.S. Special Ops. And of course, it was 3 years ago, that we went to AP Hill. We walked through, Joe Biggs and I walked through that training facility a replica of an American city. And of course, they train to fight where they're going to fight. This is the American government training to fight in the cities. And this is what they're saying. They say the future is urban. They want to continue in these urban cities. And that's where this is all headed.
In case you haven't heard, InfoWars has become the most influential media outlet in America. We're making freedom go viral. And now we are proud to announce a new weapon in the epic battle against the globalists. InfoWars Prime, where you can watch live high-definition feeds of The Alex Jones Show, plus exclusive insider videos from the InfoWars crew and behind-the-scenes action. Go to Infowars.com/app and download today. InfoWars Prime is available right now for your iPhone or Android. You will have access to exclusive videos that you can't see anywhere else. And that means live coverage of events and breaking news on location as it happens. You can also take advantage of amazing deals from the InfoWars store that are only available for InfoWars Prime subscribers. That's InfoWars Prime at Infowars.com/app. And if you can hear my voice, you are the resistance.